Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, everyone. Hey, this is GuitCon take 1 plus 3, 4.
Yeah, we've been trying.
But I think we're good now.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Everyone, this is Adam Neely.
How's it going?
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
First video of the day.
Hell yeah.
We've never met, which is good.
Yeah, this is fun, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. the reason I wanted to do this and actually start with an unplanned jam is to talk a little bit about what's going on in your mind as a musician, not only as a musician, but also a bass player, as a person, as an active participant of the music, but also as a listener. All those things are kind of like, we don't really think about them, but I think today it would be interesting to like dissect what's going on and all that to create like a musical story together.
For sure. I mean, it's always interesting. We were talking about this earlier. The first moment when you meet somebody and get to actually jam with them and communicate using musical language, using vocabulary that you have learned. And I think that's cool because whenever you meet somebody for the first time, you can have a conversation with them in a common language, a lingua franca. And for music, that's very, very often the scales that you play, the chords that you play, the progressions that you play, the rhythms that you play. So for example, for that little thing that we just did, it was kind of an E major vibe. And honestly, as soon as, I guess I kind of like started with like this chord, which is an E major chord with its 9. And it has a certain vibe to it. But immediately you knew exactly what that meant on the guitar. It means a series of patterns, it means a series of scales. And even though we've never really jammed with each other before, we know what goes well together because we have developed that vocabulary for ourselves and we can have that conversation with another person right off the bat, which it's exciting. And no matter who you are, if you learn this vocabulary of music, you can have these conversations with them.
Absolutely. Yes. And I love the parallel with language. When you meet someone for the very first time, you're not going to throw at him your most extreme political ideas, right?
You're not going to throw the weird upper structure triads or chromatic extensions at.
Yes. You start with a common thing. Maybe here it's GuitCon, so I meet someone new. Maybe I'll ask him about his flight travels and things like that, like a common thing. But the cool thing is that I think it happened here as we were playing. Eventually we introduced new ideas and we're a little bit more bold in the direction of the story.
Exactly.
Which takes a little bit of time, but did you feel a little bit of going somewhere else? Yeah,
and it's interesting when you have a musical conversation like that. It can also help, when you're like playing with people for a long period of time to have actual conversations about which directions you want to go with the music, but you can still get a sense of that when you're actually playing. So there was a moment where I was doing some descending bass fill at the same time that you were playing actively, and I was thinking about in the moment, maybe this isn't the best mesh of things. Maybe it's a cool idea. Maybe we're kind of gonna hit at the same time. I don't know. You're gonna go back and edit the footage and figure out if it was worth it or not.
I won't do it.
Okay, it was worth it or not. But it's interesting because it's exactly my mindset during moments like that is exactly the same mindset I have with another person as I'm talking to them. Like, are we actually speaking the same language? Is this conversation actually going somewhere meaningful? Are we getting the same sorts of things from this conversation? Maybe we're trying to talk over each other in the conversation. And it's the same sort of mindset. Even if music is not a semantically expressive language like language is, the mindset that I feel like I'm in most of the time while I'm playing music, especially improvising with somebody new, is very much the same sort of mindset I'm in with having new conversations.
Yeah, and I find that if I look back at my career as a guitar player, there was like a real switch of mindset, because when I first started to play, I was like learning the scales, the licks, songs, all that, and then I had to jam with people, and automatically my mind is like, oh no, I really need to perform well, and there's a lot of pressure to blend in a way.
Yeah, and you end up putting a lot of pressure on yourself too, which can be healthy and unhealthy at the same time. It's very stressful. It's always very stressful. Honestly, it's stressful now for me in this situation because we got cameras and new person, new environment. That never really goes away. It's just understanding that you're going to feel that way, being okay with that, and learning how to fit within that sort of feeling. But stress is it's a big part of it.
It really is, but I think you touched on something here that was really helpful to me, and it's being reminded that what we're doing here is building a story kind of from scratch. But in order to be like tuned on the same scenario of story, we need to start somewhere, which in this case, I think you took the lead, you established that chord, that ninth chord, and that kind of set the canvas. We're no longer on a blank canvas, we have like something painted here. And I gathered that, so I purposely didn't play first to see what we're gonna put on the canvas first. And then that freed me to kind of like follow the lines. You know those coloring books for kids?
Yeah.
You gotta make sure you're in the lines.
Well, I can tell you the inspiration for this chord. It's because you played another chord.
Right.
You played one of these.
Yeah.
What I don't know what the chord is. You played one of those
Right,
sorts of
yes.
things on guitar, and so you pick up little cues from like your other half for
Right,
the
yeah.
jam.
Yeah.
And if you're sensitive to it, if you're attuned to what they're doing, and you listen to their language and you match it, it's very much. I feel like a big part of it is listening versus trying to speak.
Yeah.
And again, the language and conversation metaphor goes so deep because, of course, you're a better conversationalist if you're listening to what the other person is saying, and then rather than waiting your turn to speak. There we go. That's the metaphor I want to stand by with this one.
No, I'm with you. Listening is such an essential part, and that could be a big stress reliever too, because you're starting with the role of, or in my case, I was starting with the role of the listener, not the. I don't really have to do anything. I'm just waiting on you.
What and that's interesting because that kind of comes down to the role of bass player versus guitarist too. My role typically is to set the foundation, both harmonically and rhythmically, and your role, generally speaking, is to set the melodic tone and be able to expand ideas on top of this foundation. And it can go back and forth, but just sonically, the way that the bass guitar sounds ends up working better as a foundation in this sort of setup. And knowing the roles in the conversation is interesting too, because for a lot of bass players, they'll want to play more fancy things, play more complicated things, and like hear and see the flash rather than understanding the role that it takes as a listener to like go back and forth and like know what the role is. And it's an interesting thing, and something that I think about a lot for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool that as the story builds, roles can change too.
Of course.
But you do have to have like that common thing that is established before adding even more details that can lead to somewhere completely different.
Yeah.
Which I just always find it fascinating when I improvise over something. There is so you've got the listening part. I'm listening to music. I'm not participating. I'm just listening to a band or whatever, and that's headphones. Or whatever it is, and I'm just enjoying what's happening. And then when I play, I am participating into the music, and at some point, like those two different mindsets kind of like join together. It's almost like I'm externalizing myself from what is going on. I'm listening.
You're like over there, and you're listening to what's happening here.
Yes.
Yeah, that definitely happens.
And I think it's, I talk to a lot of players who ask me questions as, well, what scale should I use on this? Or how should I put my fingers and all that? And I think that tells me that maybe you're missing the, where am I going with this? I'm not sure. Yeah, I do. I think a lot of players let the music come out of their fingers. Patterns, licks, and all that, which is a good part. It gives your mind a rest a little bit, relying on those automatic patterns. However, if you can engage your mind and instead of having the music coming from here, you have it from inside, that's the control room, whether it's here, your heart, whatever, and then these should be under the command of what's inside. And I think that shift is important too when you're playing with other people.
Yeah, and I don't think it's bad to rely. I don't want to say it this way. I don't think it's bad to rely on patterns in some way because I rely upon words that I've practiced. Like I don't need to think about how to which words I need to say in what order because it just comes naturally because I've developed the syntax, et cetera, et cetera. But there is a deeper meaning behind every word that I say. I'm trying to communicate something very specifically. I'm not just babbling words into the void because I know how to say words.
Yes.
So it's like, what words should I say? That's kind of a weird way of trying to ask about how to learn to write a novel or something. Which word should I write down?
Yeah.
I don't know. You got plenty of words. Learn a bunch of them and then kind of step back from it a little bit more. But that's a very good point. Is because we get so wrapped up in scales, we get so wrapped up in patterns because we think that that's what the music is. It's not. It's part of it. It's an important part, but there's a step beyond that. And I think that's harder to teach. It's harder to explain, but once you're in that mindset, it's really, really amazing. That's where the music is.
It is. Let's try something.
Okay,
that I do with my students. Let's say that I've got, so you're no longer going to take the role of a bass player, the foundation. I'm going to establish the story, and you're going to try to think theme.
Theme. Okay.
And I'll do something simple, just a couple chords. Maybe I'll have this. And I don't know.
Okay, cool.
And this.
All right.
Just like what we were doing earlier.
Yeah.
So this is the canvas, and then you're painting a theme over this.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
Now let's try something else. Put your bass down.
Oh, okay. No bass.
And I'm going to play the same exact thing. And I want you can vocalize it or not, it doesn't matter, but just imagine, be a singer here.
Okay.
Okay? And here we go.
Not a good singer.
I'm not either. Or that's where you don't have to.
Yeah.
I'll come. It doesn't matter, but here it is. You are a good singer. It works.
Well, do you know what I'm doing with that? Because I like this idea. I'm imagining exactly what I would play on bass. Like physically, I'm visualizing exactly what notes I'm playing.
Yep.
And I know vaguely how to sing it.
Yes. And I saw your fingers moving too, so that was a good clue.
And do you know, this is a fascinating thing. Do you know Bobby McFerrin?
Yeah. Yes.
What he does when he does his crazy a cappella things is he fingers all of his actual vocalizations. You can see him on the mic, and they're clarinet fingerings, as he's explained one time, because he learned how to play the clarinet in middle school or something like that. And I'm not sure if they're actual clarinet fingerings, but you see him do this, and there's a physical relationship between his body and his voice, and I think that's such a cool relationship that you can do.
But I find it fascinating that as soon as you put your bass down, well, yes, you still had the bass mindset a little bit.
Yeah.
But not completely, because this was absent. And I feel that as soon as you grab your instrument, there's something weird in your mind that tells you, all right, well, this is how I need to do things.
Yeah.
And the cool thing with both themes, the one you played first, even though you're a great melodic player and you have that embedded, but still, I think for people who are not that great, singing first really forces you to think in terms of words and breaths too, because you have to breathe. And most of the time what I find, when you start with the voice, the theme is oftentimes more memorable because it's not governed by your fingers, your patterns. You're maybe not the best example because you're very proficient. Yeah.
Well, this was fun because I knew exactly where you were headed with that whole thing. And even still, I do feel like I was a little freer with the voice, weirdly, even though I don't have the technical facility that I do on the voice at the bass. It is something that's pretty cool. And the fun thing, I think it was Esperanza Spalding, the bass player, once I saw her give a master class or teach somebody once. And she was, somebody was doing some shredding bass solo. And, at the end of the bass solo, she says, kind of matter-of-factly, okay, can you sing that back to me? And they had no idea what they just played because they weren't thinking along the lines of I want to create a statement and then I want to play it. They were playing super fast and just hey, look at me and do this. And that relationship of voice and playing is something that I'm very passionate about. I think it's a big thing. It's a big thing.
It really forces you to participate in the conversation, but listen too. You have to.
Yeah.
In an everyday life conversation.
Yeah.
So that was really good. So I would recommend anyone out there to try that. Like put your instrument down and sing something simple, and then grab your instrument and replicate that. And really, if you do that, like that's an endless worth of material to develop your musicality on the instrument.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Licks and all that have their place. And I kind of picture it like I did a video a while back where when I'm improvising, I'm thinking of myself holding two cups. With two, like there's a blue cup and a red cup. The blue cup is all the singing vocal parts, so think melodic, simple, things people are going to remember. The red cup is the technical cup. That's where you rely on right, the automatic things.
Yeah.
And in one way, if you did your work on the instrument, the red cup is really easy. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
It's like it might sound impressive and all, but it's really easy stuff if you did the work. The blue cup is maybe simpler technically, but it's very challenging mentally. And so as I'm improvising, I see like these cups constantly being poured into each other. So I start melodically. Let's say I start melodically, blue cup, that content is going to the red cup. And then, oh man, I'm out of ideas. That's why I rely on this. That's why I do this a little bit. And I constantly recharge these cups and yeah.
Well, the thing I've always, to use the cup metaphor, because we're using metaphors here, if you start with too much red cup, there's not going to be any room for the blue cup later on in the solo.
Yes.
That's one thing I've definitely noticed, is that you can't come out charging with all the licks and all the stuff, because then by the end nobody's going to care if you have a great melodic statement. It's a good balancing. But if I was going to say which cup to start with, to start the evening with, let's say, start with the blue cup.
Yeah, I agree. And the cool thing is that, so people might ask, how do I charge this one? How do I load it? But it really has to do with the ear. And I find putting the guitar down is such a useful tool because you will hear things that are deep within, maybe things you've heard before, but you don't remember. Whatever inspiration is, that's a different topic. But you'll hear stuff if you go on a walk in the evening, no distractions, and just listen. And there's stuff that you will start hearing. And then when you hear it, record it on your phone or whatever, and you just try to replicate it, and that'll fill your blue cup.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
This was fun.
This was a really great conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. This
You're
was
welcome.
fantastic.
Everyone, check out Adam Neely. I'll leave all the links in the description, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you should, because if not, I'm going to hunt you down. And no, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, a new video comes out. So if you like this kind of stuff, subscribe. This is David and Adam from GuitCon.
GuitCon 20. What year?
It's 2018.
2018. It's 2018. Okay, yeah.
Version 2.
Version 2.
Everyone have a great rest of your time and practice well.
Bass.
Guitar.